Good afternoon, everyone, and a big warm welcome to our virtual Roadshow event on career pathways and standards in cybersecurity. Welsh translation will be available today throughout the event and is located on the right-hand side of the stage next to the chat function. So to run through the running order of the speakers and what we have this afternoon, we have an introduction to the UK Cybersecurity Council from Simon Hepburn, CEO of the Council, followed by an update from the Welsh Government by Michael Groves, Head of Digital Economy at the Welsh Government. We then have a short presentation on career pathways from Amy Rogers, Programme Manager at the UK Cybersecurity Council, and Zeshan Sattar, Director of Learning and Skills Certification at CompTIA, followed by a presentation from Paul Dawson-Hart, Programme Manager for Standards and Ethics at the UK Cybersecurity Council, and Brian Lilly, Technical Lead of the UK Cybersecurity Council. We'll then move into a question and answer session, so please do put any questions you have for any of our speakers today in the comments section, and we'll put them to our speakers during the Q&A session shortly. But it gives me great pleasure to introduce Simon Hepburn, CEO of the UK Cybersecurity Council. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. So really good to see you all. I will be doing a brief presentation just on the kind of just a introduction and outline to, I think, the work of the organisation. Just taking you through the agenda. It will be a whistle-stop tour. So really talking about the history of the organisation, our mission, the core journey. So the journey we've been up to date, and also kind of moving forward some of our future plans. Our core 5 pillars in which we operate, the ecosystem and who we basically engage with as part of our developments, and the next steps of the organisation. So as part of the history, and I'm sure many of you will know, the core kind of strategy that I think both indicated that some change and development and professionalization needs to take place within the sector. It really took place within the National Cybersecurity Strategy of 2016 to 2021. I think within that document, it really articulated the importance to developing and credit the cybersecurity profession, but also to create an organization that would be a kind of focal point which could advise, shape and inform national policy. Move forward, so that's from 2016 to 2021. Move forward to 2020, 2018. That's when the National Cyber Skills Strategy was basically launched. And within that document, there are specific references to the creation of an independent body, which would ultimately be the UK Cybersecurity Council. And also the development of a framework of cybersecurity specialisms, which had alignment to specific career pathways. So that's been a lot of the work that was basically been taking place. So in 2019, DCMS basically appointed IET as a lead organisation to work with 15 other organisations, BCS, CompTIA, etc., as part of the development of some of the kind of the foundation work of the council. And they've done a really, really good job. So again, any colleagues that were involved in that, just to send my appreciation. So that was really important, what I call foundation and formation work that took place through the formation project. And the key outcome of that really was to have a clear kind of direction of travel. And one of the key things that came out is what's the kind of vision, mission and values of the organization. So the key vision and what we needed to be was ultimately the voice of the cybersecurity profession. And as anyone that knows me, my whole view on it is that to be the voice, you both need to listen and you need to hear. So, and really then you could then a conduit to kind of informing and shaping government policy and having conversations and feeding back. As part of that, it's important then to be the self-regulatory body for the profession, to support the national government's cybersecurity strategy, and to develop and promote and to be stewards of the standards and also our kind of career pathways development. So continuing on our journey, in March 2021, we ended the formation project and the whole entity of the UK Cybersecurity Council became secure, so as an independent entity. In July 21, we were granted charitable status from the Charity Commission. September 21, I was appointed as the Chief Executive Officer. And we also opened our organizational membership program. And we've had a lot of members obviously join the organization to inform how we develop and to be consulted, etc. In November 21, we were granted Royal Chartership by the Queen, which is fantastic. And at the moment, we're just waiting on the Great Seal before we can actually go formally to kind of hail that we've got the chartership. So it's gone through Privy Council. So the next stage is really just to receive the Great Seal. And also in November, we were part of the launch of the Decrypting Diversity Report, which was a report by NCSC that was written by KPMG. Sorry about all the acronyms, but I know you know all these organizations. And within that report, it really looked at the diversity within the cybersecurity profession. And there was a baseline report that was carried out in 2020, and 2021 really looked at what's the kind of distance traveled. And within that report, there was 5 recommendations, 2 of which ourselves as the council will be driving forward. But again, all those kind of links, etc., all available online or on our website. And then in December 21, the National Cyber Strategy was launched. And again, we had specific references within that document, which we were obviously really pleased to share. From January onwards, I mean, we've really been working closely with obviously DCMS as our core funder, NCSC as a technical authority, and ourselves. And really, those meetings have really been ongoing, obviously, since I've joined the organisation. The key thing for me was that we're really clear, and as my chair always says, it's important we stay within our swim lane. So it's the whole thing then of we are the organisation is very focused on developing the standards, developing the career route map, ethics, the whole thing around obviously skills gap, etc. And really then working closely with people like NCSC, who are the kind of technical authority. So I think we're really working in close partnership, and then you've got the best of both worlds as we're developing our work. So in February, we started our national roadshows, both of the consultations, and that's UK wide, so Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and England, and also our Standards and Careers Roadshow, which is what we have today, again across all of the devolved nations. We've also established our working groups for standards, ethics, and careers. So again, thanks for anyone that's involved in that, but also that's joined as members of the organisation. And from March onwards, we'll continue with our roadshows. We're doing some thematic work around kind of standards and route map development. Uh, we will be responding to the consultation. We had a consultation for Wales was on Monday. So again, thanks to everyone that attended that. And we'll be responding both in relation to our organisational members, but also from our board and executive of the organisation, because there may be agreeing views, but there may be different views. So it's important to kind of get those views. What I would say for people is really to get actively involved in that consultation. And also, we've been holding thematic events. So yesterday we had International Women's Day, excellent event, great numbers, phenomenal speakers, including my chair, Claudia Nathanson, also the CEO of NCSC, Lindy Cameron, and also Angelique Lafoy from Jaguar Land Rover, head of cryptology, and working in partnership there with WeSys, so Women in Cyber UK. So fantastic event. And tomorrow we have the London Skills Symposium. So that's really looking at financial services in the city and cyber technology, and financial services, fintech, and the importance of the kind of securing or mitigating the skills gap. I think is the best way to kind of describe that. But also some of the specific challenges for the financial sector. That's taking place tomorrow. If you're interested in attending, please do. We've got great numbers on that event also. We're basically working on the basis of 5 key pillars. I won't steal the thunder of my colleagues who will be talking about the careers and standards, etc. But our 5 key pillars: professional standards, professional ethics, careers and learning, outreach and diversity. And I'll focus on that one because we're not focusing on that in relation to our key presentation. And that's really around the importance of one. For me, it's really around the people understanding what the cybersecurity profession is, really outreaching to schools, colleges, universities around the work and the types of work and the kind of different specialisms, because it is, at year 9, when young people are choosing their options, they're not aware, they very often will say yes, they're really interested in joining being a doctor or engineer, or working in relation to mechanics, accountancy, law, etc. But at the moment they're not saying I want to be a cyber specialist. So really, but very often that's to do with they're not aware of the sector. So really our outreach is really about promoting the sector, all of the specialisms, the fantastic opportunities that basically exist. And also the diversity is really linking into the decrypting diversity work, which is really promoting the and enhancing the diversity we do have in the sector, especially because some of the stats are not where we want them to be. So I think it's really about focused on that. And our pillar 5 is around thought leadership and influencing. So that's really, again, working with our organizational members, working with experts within the fields, really engaging with obviously government departments, really thought leadership around cyber security in relation to, again, our key pillars, and also influencing government kind of consultations and information. So that's a key part of our work. As part of what I call our ecosystem partners, this is just really to show all of the, not all of the, some of the key partners we're engaging with. So obviously NCSC, as I said, as part of our kind of technical support, DCMS there, and UKC3, we've got colleagues that work with closely there. Obviously the three nations, so Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, and the different departments within government. And that's really important that you can see. Obviously, we're in the centre there, and I think we're the kind of conduit for a lot of the developments that will be taking place, especially within our swim lane. And it's important that we're engaging with all the key partners. So what we develop in relation to standards, in relation to career route map, lands with all of these organisations, institutions, and nations. I think that's really, really important. So as we all know, the cyber strategy was launched back in December. We really want to focus on particular areas. Again, it's about staying in the swim lane. So, we're in pillar 1, I would say, and also which is around the UK cyber ecosystem, and objective 2, which is to enhance and expand the nation's cyber skills at every level, including through a world-class and diverse cybersecurity profession that inspires and equips future talent. And for me, that absolutely encapsulates our core mission, our core direction of travel, our key objective ultimately. So that's the cyber strategy. And just to share, there is a consultation out at the moment. The closing date is 20th of March, and that's really focused on embedding standards and pathways across the cybersecurity profession by 2025. And we had a conversation, obviously, with colleagues from Wales on Monday on this, where we had DCMS, and we're doing that presentation at the moment. I would just encourage individuals, organisations, institutions to read the consultation and respond, because I think the more it's important we develop this sector on the basis of what basically ultimately everyone basically wants. So I'm really looking forward to, 1, the closing date, but 2, the kind of feedback when the report's produced, and I'm sure that's going to be around June or July this year, where we'll basically see what the outcome on all opinions and then a government response. So I'd say people actively get involved in that. And just to kind of give an update on our kind of next steps. So key for us, really about aligning to the national cyber strategy, as basically said, developing the professional standards and career route map work, as my 2 colleagues will be sharing with you in a moment, forming strategic alliances, based on our ecosystem and based on our core objectives as an organisation. So really working with those different ecosystem partners, engaging with the wider sector as part of our strategic developments. So that's where we're working with members of our organisation as part of our kind of standards development. We're part of our career route map work, and really driving forward the developments and being informed as part of those developments. Implementing our chartered organisational requirements, as I said, just waiting on the Great Seal itself, and then we can really drive that one forward. And also, really importantly, developing a fit-for-purpose organisation to deliver on our mission. So that's we've had several roles that are recently advertised. I think there's only one left, which is the finance and head of finance and operations. Anyone interested, do go on the website and apply. And but we will be recruiting the staff. You see the change in the organisation in the new financial year, and be driving our mission forward. So just to finish off, just to say thank you very much for listening. I'm going to hand back to Lisa, and thank you all. And hopefully I'll be around for the Q&A, but I do, as you can imagine, there's quite a few meetings taking place, but hopefully I'll be around for Q&A. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Simon. I'd like to introduce Michael Groves, Head of Digital Economy at the Welsh Government, who's going to give us an update from the Welsh Government perspective. Welcome, Michael. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Simon, for the explanation you've just given to everything before me. I don't have a great deal to deep dive into, but I just wanted to highlight to everybody some activities that have taken place within Welsh Government that bear significance and relevance in this space. We are now 12 months on from the publication of a All Wales digital strategy, which for the first time is a cross-portfolio strategy, which tries to concentrate the mind and Wales' aspirations in the digital space. That strategy contains 6 key missions of digital transformation of public services, increased data and collaboration of data sharing by public sector, our digital connectivity roadmap, digital inclusion, and then the last 2 are digital economy, for which I lead, and most importantly in this space, digital skills. I think we'd like to thank the UK Cybersecurity Council for its efforts with this activity, and for each of you that are on the call and participating today. We're really keen that we get active contribution from Wales to this broader consultation and the Council's activities moving forward. As contained within each of those 6 areas that I've just outlined, we have quite significant aspirations for growth for both the sector, for the broader digital economy, and notably careers, pathways, and standards for the cyber sector. We're very, very happy to have a growing cyber security sector within Wales. We've got some very specific aspirations and activities planned around potentials for centres of excellence in cyber and cyber innovation activities. So I'd really just to finish off and encourage everybody that's on the call today to contribute as well as they might, and make sure that we as Wales have a voice in the activities and the work that will move forward from the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'd like to introduce Amy Rogers and Zeshan Sattar, who's going to be giving us a presentation and update about cyber pathways. Welcome, Amy and Zeshan. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Lisa. And hello, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Amy Rogers, and I was the project workstream lead for the qualification and careers section of the council's formation group under the project lead of Zeshan. And my background is in vocational education, product development. And we're going to talk today about the journey so far to develop the career route map and the qualification framework. Over to you, Zeshan.
Thank you, Amy. Hi, everyone. My name is Zeshan Sattar. I work for CompTIA here in the UK as the Director of Learning and Skills Certification, involved in many different projects. But as Amy told you, she led the work stream for qualification careers as part of the council's formation project. That was as part of our contribution to the council's project. So CompTIA led the development of this. And we had a big tent, and we had a wonderful organization to help us out, which we'll tell you all about in just a moment or two.
Thank you. So what we're going to cover is the journey to date, how we got to where we are, and then specifically we're going to look at the two key deliverables that came out of the 2018 DCMS consultation on the industry, and this is the UK cybersecurity route map and the qualification framework. So in 2018, the government launched a consultation outlining proposals to develop the cybersecurity profession in the UK. Simon Halpern referred to that. This included the proposal to create a new independent cybersecurity council, and there was a lot of feedback in the consultation on the industry. I've put two quotes that drove the deliverables that we're going to talk about today. First of all, that the current cybersecurity qualification and certification landscape is very hard to navigate. It's difficult to assess the options available and to make appropriate informed choices about career paths or the skills that would help organizations upskill their workers. And next, that many existing professional organizations are unable to articulate the equivalence of their frameworks or of their qualifications or certifications in the absence of a common technical framework.
So in terms of the actual work streams, we were tasked with actually having to have two main deliverables. The first deliverable was to create a careers framework that will provide information on the careers options available in the cybersecurity profession to enable stakeholders to make informed choices. And we had wonderful stakeholders, which we'll talk about that in a moment as well. And the second part was a qualification framework, which will actually help us to facilitate navigation of the cybersecurity sector. So essentially, if you try to look for how do I begin a career in cybersecurity in say your favorite search engine, you'll find so many different opinions and so many different ways. So the whole idea was to say, okay, right, this is the right approach to look at it, and the other ways you must consider. For example, could be apprenticeships, could be in terms of different qualifications you could look at, and that's what we're trying to kind of combine together in one area. And in terms of where we would combine it, we had to figure out, okay, what would we try to push out to the industry as a whole? We wanted to make it quite accessible. So again, going back to that favorite search engine, when people would type in, how do I begin my career in cybersecurity? up would come the UK Council, UK Cybersecurity Council website, and from there the individual could easily navigate to the careers and learning section, where they would discover the careers route map, and within the careers route map they would be able to link out to the qualification framework. So it's where almost kind of thinking in putting ourselves in the shoes of our potential stakeholders and trying to kind of discover the journey that they would go on, and that way we could serve that information to them in the right possible way. So in terms of doing what is right, we were very focused upon the guiding principles that would actually get us to our destination. The first element we wanted to make sure was that we would have transparency in everything that we would do, and our process would be repeatable. As projects are temporary and finite and must come to the end, as I was quite aware that, in terms of once we finish the project with setting up the council, in essence, I would disappear. And so, if there were changes in the industry, and we know there are always changes in the industry, we could actually, or our successor could actually go back and review the documentation, review the templates, and again repeat the process to make the appropriate changes and updates. It's very important to have clarity in communications. I was very looking at the idea of whenever somebody is looking at the content on the council's web pages about careers and learning, it should be accessible to someone with a level 2 GCSE level of English. So it had to be for the point of easy to understand, easy to read. And in terms of being accessible to all, it had to also be available to all. So making it so there's no point of doing all this work and it's under lock and key somewhere and nobody can see it. We had to make sure that it would actually go out to the wider industry, be visually impacting and easily accessible that way. And that kind of led us to the final element was having a consistent lexicon. And you're going to hear this word a lot throughout the session. We're trying to get the same vocabulary, the same terminology across the piece, not just in the careers learning section, but across the council's web pages. So everything will tie back to trying to increase the number of professionals that we have. And the lexicon that we use were the CyBOK, the Cybersecurity Body of Knowledge, and the CSEC or CISEC framework. So we were very conscious about using those two frameworks to enable everyone to speak the same language, as it were. And in terms of the number of people that we have involved in the qualification careers work stream, there's all of them there, all the organizations that supported us. So obviously we're there in the middle. The IET, as you heard earlier, led the council formation project. And we had, as you can see there, different certification bodies, different framework providers, government agencies, other associations from different just side industries such as engineering and the British Computer Society. So we had all these organizations really being champions of the work that we're doing. And as you can imagine, with all these wonderful organizations, it was a case of trying to get everyone to speak the same language, as it were, was a journey in itself. But as you'll see today, we got there, and I'm very proud to show you what we've done.
Thank you, Zishan. So now we're going to look in a little bit more detail at the career route map. And this is a quote from the DCMS consultation regarding the brief for the career route map. And it was to create a framework agreed across the profession, setting out a comprehensive alignment of career pathways through the profession, leading towards a nationally recognized career structure adopted by the whole UK Cybersecurity Council. So in approaching this, we examined several existing career and skills frameworks in the cybersecurity industry, as well as other domains. We consulted representatives of the cybersecurity practicing profession, training providers, professional bodies, as well as qualification awarding bodies. We drew on well-established sources, And this really was all to ensure that we weren't reinventing the wheel, and we were developing a repeatable process that can be applied to all different sorts of products. Now, what has been developed is a framework that provides information on the expectations, skills, and the development required for professional specialism, along with details on progression through different roles and across 2 different roles.
So, as I mentioned earlier, it was a journey we went on. So we were looking at all the different frameworks, lots of different information. We had the organizations that I showed you the logos of, all providing their own content, and we examined hundreds of pages of everything basically. And what we found was there was this kind of myth versus reality scenario. So there's this kind of myth that there is a golden pathway or a stairway to success that follows A, B, and C. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and when we found some career pathways, they kind of talked about this kind of approach from A to Z, which actually when we start talking to the professionals and other examining other documentation that's publicly available, we found the reality was it's quite higgledy-piggledy. It's a spaghetti junction of a career, because you could start from one specialism within the cybersecurity sector and end up in a different sector or different specialism altogether. So we had to then figure out a way to easily serve that content up so it doesn't overwhelm the individual looking at the work that we've created. So that will say, actually, this is too complicated. I don't want to work in the sector. So we're trying to be simple, to make it accessible, but also try to be have a bit of reality check to see this is actually the industry where there is a potential to jump from one specialism to another specialism, and the way to actually progress your career is never in the linear fashion. It could be sideways, it could be downwards, it could be upwards, it could be anywhere in between. And like I said, our workstream consultation with all the stakeholders demonstrated the audience for the careers roadmap would be very wide. And when we came to looking at the different stakeholders, we initially felt it might be people just trying to get into the industry, or maybe people in the industry. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, we found out what not only do we talk about new entrants, we also had to then speak to career changers, people who might be working in, say, the tech, finance, or any or military type role, and they were trying to come into the cybersecurity sector. What information could we provide for them to access a cyber career? Recruiters were finding that it was an absolute minefield to figure out what all these different job roles that they would see actually means. For example, they would see, say, a penetration tester in one job advert, but they call them a cybersecurity consultant in another job advert. Now, what was the difference? And is it the same role or isn't it? So it was a case of trying to make it easier for recruiters to understand the sector a bit more. We also found that qualification bodies and trade organizations such as ourselves wanted a clear picture as well, because when someone talk about cybersecurity, is it cybersecurity or is it physical security, and is that part of cybersecurity? So kind of talking a same language, the same lexicon as it were, was very important to us. Alongside that, we had training organizations that were trying to offer up programs and trainings to the students, and even career changes and everything in between. And they were trying to figure out, okay, how can this sector be a bit more demystified? Managers who might be hiring new talent, they wanted to understand how does someone's experience in a certain job role could actually apply to the role that they're looking for. We had local government and regulation providers trying to figure out what did the cybersecurity sector mean for them, and what are the roles and specialisms they need to account for. And finally, we were quite surprised about the last one, which was the teachers, the parents, and carers. Because when young people see that hooded figure on their on the news or on lots of different media, they think, would that then put them off of doing a cybersecurity career, or would actually turn them on to do a cybersecurity career? So teachers and parents and carers were equipped with the right knowledge and understanding to be able to provide that guidance to those young people. So in terms of benefits, what we're trying to do with the careers route map was to provide detailed information for a wide range of stakeholders about 16 professional areas within cybersecurity, not only for our joiners, but all the other stakeholders I showed you before. We also wanted to make sure there was clear and detailed information on each specialism. So essentially, whether you look at one specialism or another specialism, the same information was served up. So this was very important because, as you can imagine, the cybersecurity sector is still changing and adapting and trying to find its way. So at the time of the project, threat intelligence was a very much an up and coming specialism. So we had to figure out, okay, where could we get information that wasn't readily available on external sites and other research papers. So we ended up finding industry experts who could tell us a bit more about that specialism. So it meant like a lot of hard work, but we were very keen on not leaving any gaps. We want to make sure all the gaps were filled out. And we were very much want to ensure that the information served up would actually be relevant to both a new hire or an early careers person to an experienced person. And everything at the end of the day would be consistent. So it doesn't matter which specialism you're looking into, which specialism you want to transition into, the same information would be available. And this is quite interesting. Of one of the things that we found was when we talked to people in the industry who were veterans, and they're very much focused upon this idea that they're looking for T-shaped professionals. So in terms of a cybersecurity professional, they should have the fundamentals or foundations in cybersecurity across people, process, and technology. But then also there is something they can say, this is their specialism. So for example, that might be penetration testing or risk management or governance. So they could actually decide, right, where exactly do you belong within this industry, and what is the thing that you are known for. So it's very keen point about, yes, we're looking for people with great cybersecurity generalist skills, but we're also looking for individuals with the element to actually go and a bit deeper into one area. And that brought us to creating 16 different specialisms. And you might find 16 is a lot. Actually, when we started looking at different job roles, there was lack of consistency in titles, and there's a mismatch in what a job role might be called versus what they would actually do. So we took the approach of going towards specialisms, because specialisms demonstrate a principled field of professional activity, responsibility, or practice. So in terms of the development process, this was the wonderful journey we went on. Our first port of call was talking to the workstream members. This were the wonderful logos that you saw previously. And as we were carrying out the work, we were actually had checkpoints with the advisor group, which sat over the council, and they were made up of different areas of the industry, both people who are practicing, leading, or might be in academia, and everywhere in between. So we were actually talking to the advisor group at each stage of the process as we were creating content and actually testing out within that stage. Once we had some initial ideas and content created, we moved into stage 2, where we brought in the wider academia, in industry representatives. This included both individuals and corporations. We talked to governmental bodies and NGO stakeholders. We also brought in different professional bodies who may not have been part of the council's project, and these could be even technical bodies. They could have been member or with bodies that had some interest in cybersecurity. And then in our final stage, we actually went out and started talking to students and saying, okay, right, this is what we've created. And these students were a mixture of university students, a bit younger students, as well as students from working in a kind of being part of career changer programs. So trying to get their viewpoint of, does this make sense? Does this actually resonate with you? and we brought in recruiters to kind of see if they also agreed that this does our work demystify the sector. And finally, trainers, the people who actually are at the coalface, delivering that training, delivering that content. Does this actually agree with the question that they get in the classes? And we're very pleased to hear lots of resounding positives as we're demonstrating our content. So I think I've teased you enough. We talk about it, you might as well see it.
So we'll give you a little demonstration now. We'll show you the navigation. You navigate to the council's homepage and then to the careers tab, which you can access on the right, careers and learning. And then you scroll down to the career route map. Once you're in the career route map section, there's a short description, and then it takes you down to the actual map itself. So what you can see here is a display of the 16 professional areas, and I'm going to repeat what Zishan has said. These are not job roles or job titles. These are principal fields of professional activity, responsibility, and practice. Now, clicking on one specialism will bring up that one highlighted in orange, and then some other ones will remain, and those are specialisms which share similar characteristics. So once selecting a particular specialism, you can click on the Learn More, and that will take you to another screen, and you can scroll down that, and that will provide you with further information on that particular specialism. So you will see details on skills and qualifications. Within those, there are details on progression. Most areas have 2 levels of capability following the NCSC CCP model, practitioner need, and it gives details on the main distinction between those pathways. We spoke earlier about the skills. We're using the CSEC skills framework, and each professional area provides details that give you information on the particular skills, CSEC skills, as well as the knowledge, which is based on the SIBOC knowledge references. There's joining information for new entrants, as well as information for professionals who are in similar professions. And there's also this section on the qualification framework, which we'll discuss the detail on in the next section. So please have a look at that at your leisure. There's a huge amount of information, and we've had feedback that a lot of organizations are currently using this in their HR departments with their managers and also their individuals. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the qualification framework and give you a little bit of detail about that. So in a nutshell, the purpose of the qualification framework is to provide a system of classifying a qualification at different levels for comparability using a consistent lexicon, which we've discussed. The stakeholders for this are the same stakeholders that will use the career route map. Again, just to echo what Zishan has said, we originally thought this was about the pipeline of new entrants, but what we found in the research and also the people who are now using the career route map, there's just as many managers who want to use this to help their workers as recruiters. Even awarding organizations are interested in looking at the specialisms and the way that maps to the particular products and services that they are developing. So the guiding principles of the qualification framework development were, first of all, to make sure it was open to all cybersecurity qualifications and certifications. And it's also important for me to point out the qualification framework is not a recommendation or an endorsement. It is information in a consistent manner, and it's available to all cybersecurity qualification and certification owners. The Council ensures that the information is accurate. We have validators that check the information that is mapped. And there is also a challenge process for all awarding organizations. Once the information is mapped and checked, if there are any questions on it, we certainly have a discussion with them about the output of that information. Equivalency queries are reviewed and responded to on a regular basis, and validity and reliability of the equivalence methodology and process is checked regularly and open to stakeholder feedback. So the benefits of this, the driving purpose of this was to put everything on a level playing field, to make it easy to compare and to provide that clear and consistent approach to identifying knowledge and skills outcomes against a range of criteria. This provides clarity for the individual for their cybersecurity career planning, as well as for developing transitions between different disciplines. It also provides support for organizations in developing their recruitment and selection, as well as guidance in their workers' professional development planning. And as I've discussed, there's information for awarding organizations to have a look at the landscape and where there might be gaps in products. It can also be used as a reference scheme for projects and products such as Cyber Essentials, where an individual needs to present certifications from a predetermined list to show their eligibility to carry out certain tasks. So a little bit about what the process is to submit your qualification or certification. It's quite a straightforward form with the information that you would expect to see about the type of qualification and the areas that it covers. We've used a method which is used in many educational evaluation settings to collect information in a standard way using the CyBOK and the CSEC lexicon. There's mapping information for those, and the intention is to be able to provide information on skills and knowledge that can be compared to a range of other products. So this is just a small section of the entry form, just to give you an idea of what it is. So the information that is contained is the contact information, the qualification and certification owner, type of learning product that it is, specialist subject area, the learning outcomes, the knowledge areas that are covered, skills and competencies that are covered, total learning time, delivery method, assessment method, and then links to the product website. This information is taken from the technical syllabus or the exam syllabus rather than the overall syllabus. So we're really looking at how success in that product is judged by the awarding organization. This is an example of an information display. It's not confirmed that this is how the product information will be displayed, but we're looking to achieve a one-page display on all products and services that clearly display the type of knowledge, the areas of knowledge that are covered and the percentage, as well as the types of skills and the percentage of those, and information that you can click on to get further information about the product, levels information, prerequisites information. So the last thing I really want to run through is the process within the council that we're looking at and how this links up with the career route map. Once an awarding organization submits a certification, that goes to a validator who will then check the entries. Any dialogues that are needed take place between the awarding organization and the validator. Once it's agreed, that enters the council's database, and that is then transposed into the one-page display, similar to the one we've just looked at. At the same time it goes into the database, it's intended to go to the Career Route Map Approval Committee, where they will look at the contents and make some judgments about which products will apply to which specialisms, and that's a process which is still in development. And then when that's agreed, that will be displayed in the Career Route Map. So that is a whistle-stop tour of our journey to date and where we are. I think we'll take questions and comments at the end. So it just leaves me to say thank you and pass you back to Lisa.
Thank you very much, Amy and Zeshan. Next, I'm delighted to introduce Paul Dawson-Hart and Brian Lilly, who'll give an overview of cyber standards. Welcome, Paul and Brian.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking time to listen to this presentation, during which myself and Brian, we're going to share parts of the slide deck. So to introduce myself, I'm the Programme Manager for Professional and Ethical Standards here at the Council. I joined the Council around 5 months ago, and we'll talk about breadth and depth of knowledge and competence later. I'd say my background is narrow and shallow in cybersecurity, around 4 years PMing Cyber Essentials, etc., and ISO 27001. So I kind of represent one of those professionals entering the profession, late into their careers. And in addition to that, the master's degree I'm currently undertaking in cybersecurity, I probably didn't make the most informed judgment in terms of the course that I chose and the institution that I chose. So that relates to some of the programs of work that we've spoken about so far. In terms of this presentation, I'm really keen to avoid death by PowerPoint, and I know that everyone says that, and then you suddenly find you're dizzy with fly-ins and animations, and perhaps you're asleep. But I've tried to keep this as succinct as possible, and we can get into the detail later with questions, which we will of course be delighted to answer, although I may have to divert to Brian for some of the questions around formation history. So Brian's a technical strategic lead at the Council, and as I said, he was involved in the formation team working on the creation of the standard for professional competence and commitment, and he can provide some great insight into working up to the go live of the Council and since. So the first slide, the cornerstone. Well, what do we mean by that? Well, today we'd like to talk about is how we start to underpin and provide foundations to the profession, how we can provide confidence to those in the profession, those who recruit from the profession, and give confidence to wider society that the UK is a safe space to be online. And as the first slide says, putting standards together is really that cornerstone upon which we can have confidence in ourselves and get to a position where security is baked in by design default rather than an afterthought or an added extra. So next slide. Back in time, Googling big events 2016, I discovered that one of those was the election of Trump. So I'm not using that one, and instead it's the launch of Alexa that I've gone with. But it was also the launch of the National Cybersecurity Strategy, and out of that were some very interesting statements that are up now on this slide. I'm not going to parrot these, but what they're trying to illustrate is not that professionals are not up to the job, but that across society there is a lack of understanding of what is needed. And it's really clear that government has a role here and can help drive, support, and define what good cybersecurity looks like, as well as some changes in behaviour. It's also clear that this is a long journey, and Rome wasn't built in a day. And in many other professions, this took literally decades, or indeed sort of many terms of office, you might say. So we don't have that luxury, and that's why it's important that we as a council, that we're adaptive and we're responsive and agile, and that we've got the support of the profession. But, and it's a big but, it's not just the government's role here. As an independent body and the voice of the profession, we need to ensure the whole sector and profession partner and help us to deliver this rise in cybersecurity standards right throughout the UK, and to be proud that the standard, as we can see in other professions, or as proud as we see other professions rather, such as engineering and science and so on, having their standards. Slide 3. So jumping forward to 2018 and the Tokyo Olympics, I've drawn out again some key points from the government response to the public consultation, as they primarily relate to standards. So firstly, and linking into the presentation previous, it's clear there is a lack of clarity around the equivalence of qualifications and certifications in the absence of a common framework, which Amy mentioned earlier. But some really interesting and welcome stats show that 73%, for example, of respondents agreed or strongly agreed to the objective of professional standards for the council, and 82% to the development of a code of ethics. Essentially the profession where ethical challenges can emerge, and a guiding code is therefore imperative for anyone trying to navigate any conflicts. It's key that this code is refreshed and we continue to redraw boundaries into the future. There's no hierarchy here of specialisms across the sector. There has to be a common standard across them all, but with varying applications to reflect the nuances of the specialisms and the attributes required. So the National Cybersecurity Strategy, moving forward again, we're skipping here a pandemic and a potential global conflict and horizon scanning for a plague of locusts, but we've got the National Cyber Strategy 2022. We've got a contentious stat here, which is that 82% of respondents say that regulation, namely GDPR, or as it's now known UK GDPR, was an influence in improving cybersecurity. And I'm sure there's lots of opinions about that, but as someone who was a consultant to membership organizations around the regulation, as well as Cyber Essentials, etc., but trying to deliver pragmatic advice around the resource of the ICO and install some realism as to the supposed tsunami of SARS, etc., and multi-million pounds fines, it's probably best that I keep quiet. But I can talk through to the Royal Charter underpinning the council, now signed, awaiting seal, as Simon mentioned earlier. So homeworking has somewhat delayed this, but this is an incredibly powerful update and allows the profession to stand tall and sit as equals to other chartered professions and to be proud in that chartered status once they've achieved it. So the last point is around the exploration of government levers, including legislation to embed professional standards across the profession. This was talked about earlier in the week, but it's also not just that. It's how government buys services, etc. An example being, again, to use Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus, and ensuring that in order to be even considered for a government procurement framework, you must have these in order to bid for that work. So this is where it starts, and then hopefully that generates waves and ripples that encourage uptake of the standard in other sectors. Next slide, the Open DCMS Consultation 2022. So as a reminder to everyone, or at least as it relates to professional standards, there's now a desire to achieve a plan which is clear and understood, a plan to effectively empower the council and to formalise its role as the standard setter for cybersecurity across the whole of the UK and also indeed a leader across the world. So to do this, we need to ensure the pipeline is rich with a diverse range of people with the right range of skills and competencies. We need to ensure that we're attractive as a profession, and it's fascinating to see what's happening with the gamifying of recruitment strategies that are being used and advertising and computer games, etc., and potentially looking at the metaverse and the like in the future. But, and it's another big but, we need to do this without providing unnecessary boundaries of entry, getting a fair price point right for application and registration, not, as has come up in a lot of feedback, and not another expensive piece of paper, and ensuring that all communities, including, so for example, the neurodiverse community, are considered, particularly when we talk about requirements around communication skills that they belong in the standard. So here are some proposals as they relate to standards. So a commitment to align the government cyber profession with frameworks built and maintained by the council. And that's a discovery exercise around the transfer of relevance important, suitable government standards from the government to the UK Cybersecurity Council, technical standards, such as an example from the NCSC, CCP, and to send a clear signal that there is this desire to formalise the council as a standard setter via approval of those professional and ethical standards, to be the central voice and to help professionals understand what they can do and, of course, the limitations of what they can't. Key challenges. Well, challenges, and although we've covered a lot of these in the preceding slides, I think it's worth repeating and reinforcing what this is about, what success will look like, and how we know when we realise that success. So immediately something sticks out for me is that the need for the standards to be sustainable, for them to be adaptive, and for them to be responsive. They're not fixed like the standard for a volt or a kilogram or a chemical standard. Like any framework or policy, as anyone knows, left on a dusty shelf or hidden away in SharePoint, their usefulness weakens over time and they become irrelevant. So fact-exploiting, IoT spring to mind in this case. And the last point on inclusivity is key. We need to introduce professionalism from the outset of a practitioner's career. So we need to foster early commitment to ethical principles, for example, at that starting as associate level of the standard, which Brian will talk through further. So I think I'm jumping over a slide early now over to Brian for slide 8. Here we go, Brian.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I guess just before I start on this slide, I just think it probably might be worthwhile saying why I'm here. So I guess I was looking this up because just before we started, I've spent well over 30 years in what is now termed the cyber profession. Before, I guess, not only was cyber invented, but before the internet, and looking at the security of computer systems and communications. And in those days, I was a civil servant working for now what is called the NCSC. It also made me think today of that actually I've been an Englishman living in Wales for over 27 years now. So my links with Wales are now quite deep. But now to get back to the standard, I think one of the things throughout my career that's frustrated me is the number of standards that I've seen, the number of attempts to try and, I guess, herd the profession into a particular direction. But as technology has changed and the profession has grown up, they've never quite kept up with where the profession is at that moment, and just as importantly, where it's going. So I was very keen to get involved, not only in the council as it is now, but previously in the setup project, so that there was a professional perspective into it, and that I felt as though it's important to me that us as the profession have a voice in this and are key to developing our future direction. So one of the, I guess, is the standard here that we're talking about. And I think it's really important that it's national, that there is a single place to come to for standards, so that it gets less confusing for those entering the profession. I know throughout my career, I would have benefited from that and made it a little bit easier, and maybe moved some of those, I guess, meandering paths that Zishan talked about earlier in his slide. So Paul, if you move on to the next one. So one of the things we certainly looked at was, how do we establish a standard? Is cyber really that much different from other professions? I know we do a different role, but a chartered standard exists for surveyors, it exists for accountants, it exists for engineers. So surely it can exist for cybersecurity professionals. So one of the things that we did as a setup project is we looked on existing models and we built around those models, but specifically looking at what was needed as a cyber profession. We were also quite keen that we didn't rip up everything that had gone before. So we were quite keen that all the professional bodies, all the qualifications bodies that exist in the ecosystem were part of that journey. So they were part of the project team that developed these standards, so that they have the ability to, I guess, give their members the professional title as defined by these standards as part of a journey of membership as well. We also, I think, we had a long argument on this about how relevant CPD is. And I'm a passionate believer in continuing professional development. If you don't do it in this profession, then I think what you impart to everyone else becomes out of date so quickly. If I look back to the beginning of my career, computers weren't even networked. There were individual computers sat on a desk. Look at where we are now, where you've got worldwide connectivity at your fingertips, not only your computer on your desk, but from your tablet, from your mobile, from your TV, from your fridge, everywhere. So this changes all the time. The other thing we were keen on, which is encapsulated in that bottom bullet, is that it wasn't just a single level. We felt it was important that the standards took you either on a journey, so where you were progressing through a career, or actually where you were in a job that requires professionalization, but not necessarily in a leadership role. but that professionalization should be recognized. Hence, we have come up with 3 different levels rather than just a single target. And I guess, and as you can see from the 3 blue T's, we're fully in line with what the qualifications team found in their research, in that what professionals look like today are very much breadth and depth, and we want, and actually it's what, in my experience, what my clients want and what my employer wants. They want people not only who can deliver on the piece of cyber that they say they can, but can actually talk to other people, not only within the cyber profession, but actually into adjacent professions like engineering, and actually just as important, into the rest of the business, into HR, into the executive board, etc. So if you move to the next slide, Paul. So what this slide here is just to give you a view of, I guess, what we're talking about. So what we're trying to do is look at what are the assets stroke attributes of a professional at each of the levels. What do we expect them to see? So the one I have on the slide here is all about knowledge, understanding, and experience. We also, within the standard, have professional commitment, which Paul will talk about later. And we also have leadership, we have ethics, etc. So that not only are we saying that someone should understand their area of expertise, but they should have the ability to communicate that expertise and communicate it and execute it in a way that is both ethical and professional. Move to the next slide. Thanks, Paul. And then I think, so in the project, we could only go so far, because the project was very much about setting up the council. So we've set up the council with elements of the standard, and that is at a generic level. So whatever your underlying skill, this is the type of attribute we would like you to demonstrate to get a particular professional title. And the idea is that there will be post-nominals as part of the Royal Charter applied to each of those levels. So you, as an individual, and Paul talk about this a little bit later on, you can demonstrate where you sit within the profession, sorry. And then I guess the other bit on here is that our next step, and we're always looking for volunteers for this, as to help and advise, is to look at how particular specialisms apply to that generic standard. So we will be announcing quite in the near time frame some work on that, where we're going forward, and what the future for professional standards and how you may obtain them will look like. And from that point of view, I'll hand back to Paul to carry on.
Thank you, Brian. So there's some questions specifically around competence and commitment later, so I won't dwell too long on this. But what do we mean by commitment? Well, we mean commitment in terms of personal commitment, professional commitment, maintaining a set of values and conduct that maintain the practitioner's reputation and the profession. But it needs to be holistic, and needs to be a transparent view also of competence. The underpinning knowledge, the understanding and experience within their specialism. Communication and interpersonal skills I alluded to earlier included, integrity and collaborative leadership, and mentoring. That they're all there, and we can talk to that this slide a little bit more later. So the code of ethics, the council has produced a code, and that code was produced with wide input, as always, across a number of bodies in the sector and outside. This is about what it means to be an ethical cybersecurity professional. How do you demonstrate commitment to ethical values? So we're looking at the sort of, it's one of the foundation stones here, and this is going to be applied and enforced sort of fairly and robustly and consistently across signatory organisations. And the council needs to be, the thought leader in this regard and the authority for ethical standards across the sector. Now, there are two committees. One's professional standards and the other's ethical standards. It's important that there is an ethical committee that's standalone, because we need to be looking at ethical values across the whole profession, not just limited to members of the council or practitioners who are registrants for charter status. Benefits. Well, the benefits for employers are here. It demonstrates an employer's commitment to provide a safe cyber working environment, commitment to higher standards, and maintaining the employer's competitive edge. For organisations, you've got well qualified, competent practitioners with up-to-date cybersecurity expertise and knowledge. You've got personal integrity and professional attributes and academic qualification, commitment that we talked about earlier to professional development. And then for practitioners, all of these keywords are really crucial here. So, the evolution, the rigor, the progression in terms of your aspirations, that feeling of belonging in terms of the profession, the employability, which is of course key, and the financials after that, and the confidence, the credibility. All of these keywords are actually absolutely crucial in terms of benefits of practitioners. So coming next, we've got professional standards working groups. They're meeting weekly now. We talked about getting as many people involved in this process as possible. We've got a diverse mix in these groups. We've got regulators, we've got academia, we've got professional bodies, but we've also got SMEs, and that's really crucial, considering, I forget the exact stat, but around sort of 70–75% of the sector is represented by micro businesses and SMEs. We've also got on the initial group of 5 someone representing Cyber Northern Ireland, and as that group expands to 10 in May and then 15 in December, we're really hopeful that we can also get some representation from Wales as well, and the other countries. We've got a technical advisory panel that's set up for specialisms. That's meeting for the first time this month. And we've got a plenary session on standardization of standards at Cyber UK in May 2022. And lastly, as has been mentioned a few times now, we've got that Royal Charter, which is now printed on vellum and just awaiting the seal. So that's me running through. I'm hopeful we'll get some really good questions, and back to the panel.
Thank you very much, Paul and Brian. Would love to bring everyone back in for any questions that we've had come in, and we have had a few come in so far. First question that's come in is, what is the role of higher education in the proposed qualification framework? Amy, if I can come to you first on that.
Thank you very much. We are starting with professional certifications and qualifications to test the framework. And then after that testing is validated, we will then look to widening that out into areas that currently have very well established programs.
Okay, thank you. Anybody want to add anything else to that at all? No? Okay. We have another question come in to say, are Careers Wales involved? Amy and Session, I don't know if you want to answer that one.
Actually, Lisa, can I jump in?
Of course.
So Careers Wales aren't directly involved, but I am with DCMS talking to the National Career Service in London about looking at some of the definitions and some of the, I guess, the information available within the career service about what careers look like, what are the entry points, etc. And I'm more than happy to continue that conversation with Careers Wales if they want to contact me through the council.
Lovely, thank you. We have another few questions that have come in. So the next one is, are there links to the NCSC certified degree programme, and will certified courses be recognised automatically within the careers framework? Amy, can I come to you on that one, please?
Actually, I think I'd like to put that to Paul, because you're working on that right now, Paul and Brian, aren't you?
Okay. Yeah.
As per the consultation, and I alluded to this earlier in the presentation, we're looking at all government standards and whether they're relevant and right for migration over to the standard or integration into our standards. So it's certainly true that we're exploring standards such as that you've just described, and those working groups will be looking at committees looking at analysis around that. So that work is ongoing, and but we're early days.
And I think to add to that, I think our aspiration is that eventually the council will be the place to come for all this standardization. But this is not going to be done in one step and in one fell swoop. It's going to be a very structured program, and we'll take things on board and align them as we move forward. But what we are now, hopefully, it's come through in our presentations. Our idea is, although we want to set standards and take the profession forward, we want to do that in an evolutionary, not revolutionary way. We don't want to throw away all the hard work and everything that's been done in the past. We want to use it and move it forward. And our aim is to try and make this as clear as possible for employers, potential practitioners, those that are already within the profession, and people that consume cyber services, to understand where everything fits together.
Lovely, thank you, Brian. Anybody else got anything to add to that before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, I think I just want to reiterate this in terms. I think the question also talks about within the careers framework, and I guess, like Amy said, we're going to be looking at the industry certifications first as part of the qualification framework, which then will link to the careers framework for that process we described earlier. And I want to re-echo what Brian said. This will all be a one-stop shop in the future for the Cyber Council to have. So all I can say, Claire, is a great question, but it's watch this space.
I'm going to jump in there as well and add to that the drivers of the one-stop shop are the processes that are transparent, repeatable, valid, and reliable, that do not rely on received wisdom or what different people think, but actually can be measured and are measured.
Lovely, thank you, Amy. Moving on to a question that actually came up in our DCMS presentation a couple of days ago, and it was from a lady called Alison Thom, and I'm not sure if she's on this particular session now. Unfortunately, we missed the question at the end, but it was, are you mindful that the curriculum for Wales is different to other nation states, and how will you link with existing Welsh STEM enrichment programmes, such as techno camps, so there's not a duplication of any duplicate work, so to speak? Anybody would like to take that question first?
Yes, we are aware that all the devolved nations have their own methodologies for doing things, and the processes that we're looking at the moment don't conflict with those. We're simply looking at processes to put things on a level playing field.
Thank you, Amy. Anybody else want to add to that before we move on? Thank you. Next question that's come in from our audience. Could there be potential for degree courses to align with associate membership? For example, such as how BCS do that at present, if certain criteria are met within the programme?
Okay, I think, again, this is all up for discussion and incorporation. The short answer is yes, there is potential, and what we're trying to do is create as many diverse but measurable routes into the profession. So if it meets that criteria and we can put it in so that we can, I guess, be able to communicate how it matches into a particular professional title, then the answer is yes. And I don't think it will just be degree programs. I think there's lots of industry training that is applicable to this as well. So I think higher education has its place, further education has its place, professional education has its place, and it's all about that combination. And as Zishan said earlier on, there's been many meandering routes into the profession, and we would like that to continue, but we'd like to continue in a more transparent and visible way.
Lovely, thank you, Brian. Would anyone else like to add to that before we move on? Thank you. Next question that's come in is, following on from Claire's questions, could this also be possible for CPD programs?
I could do the classic politicians here and say I'll refer to my previous answer, but I think in reality, again, I think the short answer is yes, and we'd be looking for anyone within the profession to be able to have evidence CPT, and whether that's through a formal qualification, through a piece of work they've done, or through something they've done in support of the profession, all of those things are normally valid in CPD and recognised appropriately.
Lovely, thank you, Brian. Moving on to our next question, will there be an effort to develop standards in conjunction with Cyber Wales? So Paul and Brian, can I come to you on that one, please?
Well, I think it relates to my last point, one of the latter points I made, really, which is around that call for engagement from Wales in terms of participation in the working groups and the committees that we're setting up. It doesn't end there. I mean, we're feeding out via community challenge and ensuring that that's a sort of broad, as broad a tent as possible with a diversity of thoughts, all over that piece, and that certainly would include focusing in on Wales and making sure that the views and the voices of Wales are engaged and involved in that, in leading in integral to that process.
Thank you. Just a note to our audience, please do keep asking your questions. We've got plenty of time for more of them, and we've got a few more coming in now. So following on from the last question, this one's around the pathway for someone who is already an IT professional and has worked in the field for many years. Is the route via CompTIA or other certifications? And how is this person measured with CyBOK? Zeshan and Amy, can I come to you on that one, please?
Thank you. Oh, sorry, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say, I think this question may be more about the standards and the route to the chartered process.
Shall I have a go at answering it, Amy?
Yes,
because this is exactly why I got involved in this project, because I'm an existing professional and have worked in the field for many years, and I know there is a lot of people out there, and there is a lot of views about how does my previous work get recognized in this new standard and how I pull it together. Now, this is why we've deliberately gone for competency and a competency standard. So although we have minimum standards in each of the areas, the assessors will have due freedom to look at other evidence. So where you haven't got a standard piece of evidence, they can look at something else to move, to get you at least into a starting point in the profession, and all of the three levels. Now in CPD, once you're there, we'd like to see it more formalized because the piece is in place. But for those people that have been in the profession, we can see things like case studies being valid, as well as I said, industry qualifications, as well as academic qualifications. The idea of this is not to put off competency going for professional titles. The idea is to have everyone under a common standard.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Moving on to the next question. How will the specialisms keep up to date with the changing job roles?
I'll start on that one as well.
Yeah.
The specialisms are close to my heart, as I'm the guilty party who wrote the paper in the setup project on specialisms. I think one of the key things is we were very keen not to do it as roles. We were very keen to do it as break it down by areas of knowledge and skill, so that it could be as robust as it possibly could be. But one of the conclusions we came to was whatever we did, it would be a snapshot in time. So we came up with 15 standards in the setup project. By the time the council went live, we'd expanded that to 16. We'd added another specialism there. And the idea is we'll continually review them, because if I had the crystal ball back when I started my career, when there was probably about 2 specialisms, then I probably wouldn't have guessed at the 15 or 16 of the 16 that we have now. So one of the key points we hope we're getting over here, that we want to be able to manage change, and we're not trying to stick this into the ground and say, as of 2022, this was our view, and it's there for the next 50 years. This will change and move with the profession.
Thank you, Brian. Would anybody else like to add to that before we move on to the next one? Okay. Next question that's come in is, will the qualifications framework include degrees and other qualifications such as BTECs and T-levels? And will the council look at apprenticeships as a pathway to qualifications?
So again, that would be these are regulated products, currently regulated products. So that is a separate phase for us. We're looking at professional products at the moment. We're not jumping into the arena as yet. That's currently regulated, but that doesn't mean we won't in the future.
And I just want to add, I think just because we show you the careers framework and hinted at the qualification framework, if you actually go into the careers and learning section, we do talk about ways into the profession, which includes apprenticeships and non-formal learning approaches. So please definitely go to the council's website, check out the careers learning, follow the different sections before you hit the careers route map, and it will be just such more clearer. In the interest of time, couldn't show you every single page, but what we're trying to do is have something for everyone on the council's pages. And yeah, like Amy said, we right now in terms of those qualifications, that's not focused, but who knows where we are in the future.
Thank you, Session. Next question that's come in is it possible to get involved with the council's work?
Yes, join, please, come along. Check the pages for volunteering activities and please become a member. We look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Next question that's come in is, would there be any mapping frameworks for already existing accreditations and qualification standards? Anyone want to take that one first?
I'm not really sure what the question means.
I think, Chairman, I think what you're asking is, let's say if a qualification is mapped into a NICE framework, will we then map the way that we do our mapping towards a NICE framework? Amy, you probably know better than me.
Well, we looked at all the frameworks. We have picked the CSEC for skills mapping and the SIBOC for knowledge mapping using that lexicon. So what we're looking to do with the qualification framework is to have a vocabulary that will apply to everything. Now, those products that are already mapped to other things can again be mapped to the council's qualification framework.
Lovely, thank you. Anybody else want to add to that before we move on? Okay, all good. Next question that's come in is, do you have any plans to work directly with young people to research what would enthuse them to consider cyber careers?
I think the short answer to that is yes, but I think it's not something that's immediately on the horizon, other than some of us are personally involved with doing that already. as the council grows and its membership increases and the level of committee and volunteers become to, I guess, to a critical mass, then you're going to see more of that. But we are at an embryonic stage at the minute. But I would say that a lot of us involved in the council do get involved with young people and are enthusiastic about this career.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add, the council has very strong links with the NCSC, and the NCSC run an absolutely successful program called Cyber First. So they do feed into the council's thought process as they go through. So I'm very much tapped in with the NCSC Cyber First team there. So we really are trying to make sure that as the council matures, we're actually not just looking at the immediate professional need. We're looking at that kind of long tail need for professionals. So we will be reaching out through the NCSC and other bodies to kind of bring in that voice of the younger person into the council's work.
Lovely, thank you, Session. Another question that's come in. In the last few weeks, Year 9 pupils were choosing their subjects. Has the council got a plan or strategy on how to introduce the profession to these very tech age groups?
I think the short answer as we sit today is no, but we will have in the future exactly what I said in the last answer. As we grow and we get that critical mass of people, these are the exact age group we want to look at. I'm certainly, when I've been doing my work with the National Careers Service, it's looking to create very simple language. So it's not just people that are looking for a job when they're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, etc. But when they're starting to choose their pieces, their courses, that it's accessible to those as well. And I'm quite passionate about this. I got involved with some previous incarnations of schemes with the UK Cyber Challenge and Cyber Centurion and all of those things that there's a lot of us who are active STEM ambassadors and go into schools and talk a lot about this subject. And I guess it's about collating all that knowledge and getting a more formal strategy. But I think one of the things that will really help is we can talk about get some simplified information there that is accessible not only to the children, but I think just as importantly to the parents, because I know my daughter, who's just recently started university, when she was doing her careers choice, the three sets of people she listened to were her peers, her teachers, and her parents. And I think it's really important that we inform the parents about the possibilities and what is possible for these kids as a career moving forward.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else want to add to that before we move on?
Just to say that there's been a lot of strategic developments in the government with the introduction of tech levels. I know in Wales you've had a new curriculum in 2022, January 2022. So there is a huge strategic move to make sure that vocational opportunities are included for younger age groups.
Okay, thank you, Amy. There's another one that's come in, which I think is a question, but it goes to Zeshan's point, which was the question before the last. There's a lot of overlap with some of the NCSC projects. Will the council be working with these or taking them over?
Okay, so I think we are. If we look at the national cyber strategy as it sits, it's quite clear that the government envisages the council as the place to come for standards within the profession. NCSC, because the council did not exist, have a number of schemes that are there in the marketplace at the moment where cyber professionals can utilize them, universities, etc. We are in constant conversations with NCSC about what is the best route for these standards and qualifications. How do they fit in with the council? How do they fit in with NCSE's mission and purpose? And how do we move them forward? And I guess if you looked at the presentation on standards, Paul alluded to a presentation in Cyber UK in May, and I guess that'll be the first time where the council and NCSC will be jointly on a platform and should be able to give you more information on that and some of the direction forward, more than we can do today, because it's still being actively discussed.
Lovely, thank you, Brian. So those are the questions that we've had in so far. If any of the audience have any other questions you'd like to put to our speakers today, please do so. I'm going to just give it another minute to a minute 30 seconds because there is a little bit of latency lag, just to make sure that we don't miss any questions that you've got. So we may be quiet for the next minute and a half, just to allow those questions to come in if there are any. And we do have one that's just come in. Professionals do visit schools too to educate the kids at the stage they are choosing their subjects. Schools had all the different professionals to talk to them and infuse them, and the council should look into that once ready. And is that something that the council will do?
Yes, thank you. That's a good idea, and we certainly will.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, I'll just give it another minute again, just to make sure that we don't miss any last questions. So, but please do pop them in if you do have any. Yeah, I think that concludes the question and answer session. So thank you all very much for coming along today and taking part in this presentation on career pathways and standards. And thank you to Simon Hepburn, Michael Groves, Amy Rogers, Session Sitar, Paul Dawson-Hart and Brian Lilly for taking part today. Please do respond formally to the consultation that closes on the 20th of March. It's really, really important that your feedback is received and your voice is heard as part of that consultation. And we do have 2 more virtual roadshow events coming up next week for England. This will be with DCMS next Tuesday, and that's starting at 9:30 in the morning. And for Career Pathways and Standards next Thursday, that's a week tomorrow, also starting at 9:30 a.m. And please do check our website for details of these. And as Simon mentioned earlier, we do have another event coming up tomorrow in partnership with City London University. It starts at 9 a.m. and it's titled Taking the Lead, Ensuring London has the world-class cyber skills it needs. So please do pop over to our website and register for that event tomorrow. It's been fantastic having you all here today. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your afternoon and evening, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.